Hey, fellow horror fans. This is Troy Escamilla, the director of Party Night and Mrs. Claus, and you are listening to Anthony T's Horror Show. Enjoy.
Welcome to another edition of Anthony T's Horror Show. I'm Anthony T. In this edition, I'll give you 5 reasons why the upcoming Child's Play remake is doomed to fail. I'll go into my CT Horrorfest review, which I attended a couple weeks ago. Then I'll talk to co-director Kyle Kuchta from Survival of the Film Freaks. Then I'll give you my film recommendation, plus what else is happening inside the horror chamber. But first, Rock and Shock is almost here. It's about a good another week, a week plus, before the convention hits. And this year looks like it has a better lineup so far. Major guests announced include Malcolm McDowell, Linda Blair, Ted Raimi. It has a couple of people from Twin Peaks, a couple of people from Dawn of the Dead, and a whole lot more. This looks like it's going to be a very good convention. I can't wait to go. I'll talk a little more about the show later on. Also, don't forget to like my Facebook, as I'll continue to update it regularly as best as I can. You can visit my Facebook at www.facebook.com/Anthony T's Horror Show. As I'm looking for some feedback on what you've listened to so far, what you like, what you don't like, how can I improve on the show, please feel free to leave a message on Facebook or feel free to comment on any of the posts and I'll get back to you and everything, as I'm looking for pretty much feedback so I can make this show better. Now, with that out of the way, let me hit the disclaimer warning, as we're going to have a commentary on the new Child's Play remake. Warning: the following commentary doesn't represent the views of Dark Discussions or the Dark Discussions Network. In other words, there are my views only. Back when I first started my YouTube channel for Anthony T's Horror Chamber, I did a rant about how the new Child's Play remake was a bad idea. Now, there's more news that just came out from this, and well, it looks like I'm going to have to talk about it yet again, because after seeing all this news, I just really needed to talk about it. Sometimes you get a feeling when a film is promoted that it's doomed to fail. In fact, we can go all the way back to when this was announced that it was doomed to fail. That's right, I'm talking about the Child's Play remake that is forthcoming. Once I took a look at the look of the doll between episodes, that the image of the first doll came out, and it was awful. And it got me thinking, this Child's Play remake is doomed to fail. And I have 5 reasons to why I think the new Child's Play remake is just doomed to fail. The first reason is that the upcoming Child's Play is a remake. And yes, remakes always get a strike, in my opinion, because I'm a person that believes that films shouldn't be remade. It doesn't mean that I will support remakes, because I've seen some good remakes over the years. But when I heard that this was getting remade, why? The series is still going on. It's like, you really need to make a Child's Play film, MGM. I know you need to keep the rights, but still, it's just too confusing. It's not like the Puppet Master series, which is still going on, but the Puppet Master series has the blessing of its creator, Charles Band. And it's like two different universes. But nobody from the original Child's Play wants this. Its original creator doesn't want it. Some of the stars from the original film don't want it. It's ridiculous that we're getting a remake of Child's Play. I don't know why we need a remake of Child's Play. I really don't at this time. This has divided horror fans a lot. And I truly think it's a bad idea at this moment. With everything else that I'm about to tell you, it is a really bad idea. And one of the reasons why I truly believe it's doomed to fail. Reason 2. The original franchise is still going on. There are talks of a potential TV series involving Chucky. This is something that I'm more excited for than this garbage that looks like it's coming out. Because I would like to see how a major horror franchise character would do in a TV setting. I know they did it once before with Freddy Krueger, with Freddy's Nightmares, but that was more like an anthology series or anything else, as it didn't have no roaming storyline or central storyline to it. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm down for a Child's Play TV series. And the second reason is the fact that Brad Dourif will most likely be involved in it. You cannot have Chucky without Brad Dourif. If Brad Dourif is not involved in it, then it just does not feel like a Chucky film or potential TV series that they're talking about, which I think is a very good idea. And now I'm afraid that it might get ruined because of this stupid and awful looking remake that is in the pipelines. I just don't know why they would consider trying to ruin something special so they can just keep the stupid rights to it, which will probably be done for maybe under $10 million and be kind of half-assed. Why ruin a good thing that's going right now, like the Chucky series over at Universal? That's another reason why I think it is doomed to fail, because people want the original Chucky, not the Chucky that I'm about ready to talk about. Reason 3, the plot of the remake. First of all, when I looked at this on BloodyDisgusting.com, I was saying, what the fuck? You gotta be fucking kidding me. It's like, there's no basic elements from the original in this alleged plot synopsis, or plot details as they refer to it as. I'll tell you what the official plot synopsis according to BloodyDisgusting.com is. Child's Play follows a mother who gives her son a toy doll for his birthday, unaware of its more sinister nature. Okay. But what also came out in the article was that the doll is going to be different. Very different. First, it's going to be a robot. It ain't going to be a doll. It's going to be a robot doll. Same thing. Robot. It's like, why do we need a robot? Unless it's going to say, have a nice day, like they do in Chopping Mall. I don't want to see a Child's Play film where the doll is basically a robot. And another thing that irks me about all these alleged plot details and plot is there's no hint of any supernatural elements. It's the supernatural elements that made the Chucky character what it is. And in this remake, there doesn't seem to be a hint of it. And that really troubles me because it's like, are they going to pay any homage to this film? Or are they just going to make another film and just label it Child's Play? I know, this is ridiculous. It's like, it's bad enough you're remaking it, but to have it be a killer robot instead of an animated doll is beyond belief. And to get rid of the core of what makes the Chucky character what it is just downright dumb. Dumb and, quite frankly, stupid. You can see why people like me are not happy about this remake. It is also another reason why this remake of Child's Play is doomed to fail. Reason number 4. The doll looks nothing like the original. It's like, it looked awful. It was hideous. It's like, this doesn't look nothing like the Child's Play doll in the original ones. I don't know what or who designed this doll, but it's a doll that just looks too boyish. It's not menacing. And especially if you're going to go the killer robot plot, it makes it even more worse. I don't know what they were thinking when they put this doll together. It has no inklings of the original doll. It's a doll that you just want to look away, quite frankly. I would not spend the time of day looking at that doll. It looks like a little kid, not a doll. And you're trying to make something that looks frightening. It just looks like a plain old kid. And that's why it's awful. It is awful, awful, awful. I don't know what is going on here. Seriously. And I haven't gotten to my 5th reason yet. But the look of the doll, it's just, I don't know. I just really wanted to throw my hands in disbelief when I looked at it. That is something that looked like the original poster from The Boy. It's like one thing after another, just getting everybody angry over this Child's Play remake, which none of us wanted in the first place. And is another reason why this film, or this remake, is doomed to fail. The final reason why the Child's Play remake is doomed to fail is the fact that Brad Dourif won't be voicing the doll. I'm sorry, but when I think of Chucky, I think of Brad Dourif voicing the doll. Brad Dourif plays the character very well. It makes it very sinister and very dark. The remake won't have his involvement in it. It'll feel completely different. And whoever takes his role in the remake will probably get trolled because there's only one actor that can play Chucky, in my opinion, and that is Brad Dourif. Without Brad Dourif, Chucky feels like Halloween without Michael Myers. This is really a bad idea. And I hate to say this for like the 5th time. It is doomed to fail at the box office. I just can't see how this film is going to be a big box office success. I really don't. Unless this film gets great reviews from the critics, I will probably be skipping this one because I have no interest in this film at all. I'm sorry. It's why the Child's Play remake is doomed to fail. Welcome Welcome to my CT Horrorfest review. The CT Horrorfest convention took place on September 15th in Danbury, Connecticut. My overall impressions of the convention was it was a good time. I had a good time. I got the VIP package, which entitled me to a private meet and greet with Nancy Loomis, PJ Soles, and Nick Castle from the original Halloween film, which is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. The VIP part of the convention was very good. Everyone was nice. They did a good job making sure everybody got their photos and autographs. I had a really good time. The Q&A during the breakfast was fun also. I really enjoyed it, as it's probably one of the better VIP events that I've enjoyed, whether it's going to a VIP party at Scaricon or here. This was very good. They had breakfast and everything, which is also good because don't have to pay for it. And that's always a good thing. So once that was over, I went to the convention, spent a couple of hours there. Overall, I thought I had a good time there. I thought the floor plan was good. I was able to move with ease, even though it was a little crowded. There were, when I was there, big lines for PJ Soles, Nancy Keys, Loomis, Nick Castle, and Pam Grier. Everything moved smoothly. It wasn't chaotic. Plus, the vendors were nice. Everything was set up nice to the point where was not claustrophobic or anything, which is always a good thing at these conventions. But if I had to nail one problem that I had with this convention, was that the panel started way too late. The first panel started at like 3:15. I was out of there pretty much by a little after 12. There was nothing to do. The first panel was like at 3:15. That is way too long for the panels to stop, because I'm a person that likes to also check panels. By the time that happened around 3:15, I was pretty much back at home base recording for this episode. It's like you cannot stop panels at 3:15. If it started at 12, it would have been better. So maybe I at least could stay at least another hour or two. But it was ridiculous that there was no panels to go to until 3:15. You need to have events to keep your core audience interested. But so that's the only complaint I have with this convention. Speaking of conventions, I always like to pick up a lot of stuff, and I did, especially some coffee from Deadly Grounds Coffee, the Reanimator NECA figure, which is, I believe, from Vampire Robots. And I also picked up a ton of films from Vinegar Syndrome, including their latest releases, Body Melt, The House on Tombstone Hill, the classics like Madman, which also features Galen Rush, who will also be at Rock and Shock next month, and Blood Theater, Overall, I pretty much spent a lot of money at the Vinegar Syndrome booth. So I picked up maybe about around 8 or 9 titles. I know it's crazy, but hey, I don't mind doing it because I love Vinegar Syndrome, and they're also very nice to throw in a free tote bag, which was very nice of them. Overall, I had a very good time at CT Horrorfest. I would definitely recommend you go to their convention next year. I will probably be back there next year. Lineup pending, of course, because they usually run a shorter guest list than the other conventions in the New England area. But still, I had a good time overall, and that's what matters the most. You can check out CT Horrorfest on the web at horrornewsnetwork.net/CT-horror, and you can also find them on Facebook as well. This was a good convention, and hopefully next year they'll have another good lineup that would get me back down there.
Hey guys, this is Steve and Christina. I am the founder, owner, creator, and host of Super Retro Throwback Reviews. Are you looking for the best movie reviews, music reviews, video game reviews, and Comic-Con coverage all around? Well then look no further. Definitely check out Super Retro Throwback Reviews on YouTube and our new audio podcast, the new and improved Super Retro Throwback Reviews audio files version 2.0 on the following media distributors: Podbean, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify.
Class is over, John. Time for something new and improved.
Welcome back. I'm here with Kyle Kuchta, co-director of the documentary Survival of the Film Freaks. He's also directed an excellent documentary called Phantasm. He's here today on the show to talk about his latest film.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here.
What made you get to filmmaking and focus on the documentary genre?
I've always wanted to be in filmmaking, and that started. I grew up in Connecticut, and there was some small filmmaking chapters here that sort of got me interested. And it's always been, even more than documentary, it's always been like horror movies is what got me into film and filmmaking in general. So, I was both kind of a budding filmmaker trying to get on every set that I could in Connecticut, which weren't a lot. There's not a lot of, independent cinema going on here. There's more and more now, but back in, the late 2000s, early 2010s, there wasn't a ton of stuff going on. And, so I ended up going to film school in Syracuse at Syracuse University, and that's where I sort of cut my teeth on a lot more things. And for some reason, it wasn't even that I wanted to get into documentary, but for my final project, I had wanted to do something different. And everybody was doing a narrative, and everybody was doing kind of this big piece. And what spoke to me at the time was that I had just gone to a horror convention in Syracuse, and it wasn't great. The one that I went to was not great, and it kind of bummed me out way more than just like a oh shucks situation. It bummed me out to the sense I was like, why am I feeling so like upset that this wasn't as successful, and it didn't feel like all the other horror conventions I went to when I was a kid. So I wanted to make a documentary about like how horror conventions make people feel. And that's where Phantasm, my first one, came about. So it's not that I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker, but it was that like it was a time and a place and a feeling that I had about something in my life that just sort of lent itself to a documentary. So that's where the first one came from. The second one, I wasn't ready. I did not want to do another documentary. I did not want to do another doc. I wanted to kind of focus on narrative stuff. I had just moved out to LA, and I was ready to jump back into the narrative game, but our co-director, Bill Fulkerson, reached out to me. He's also the host of Outside the Cinema podcast, which has been around for 11 years reviewing and talking about cult cinema, he reached out to me and he wanted to do something that was sort of the culmination of all the years of cult cinema viewing and watching that he's, obtained, specifically talking about how technology sort of changes cult cinema. But he wasn't a filmmaker. So he reached out to me because of our connection through Phantasm. And he was like, hey, is this something you'd be interested in? And the only reason I was interested, honestly, is because Bill's passion was there and I could see the vision that he had. And I mean, it got me excited because I'm a big, horror and cult cinema fan anyway. So it was something that was of interest to me. And he had this go get him attitude that like I was really looking for in Los Angeles, and I couldn't really find it. So that's what led us to do Survival of the Film Freaks, and that's what kind of got me into documentary. Though I will say, I did say it before, but I'm going to say it again. The next project's not going to be documentary unless something really special comes along. But the next one, we're trying to venture into some narrative stuff now that we've got some docs under our belt.
What made you want to travel the country to do your student film Phantasm compared to just doing it regional?
So it was being in New England. We don't have a ton of conventions. There are more that popped up, but in 2012, 2013, there weren't a lot of conventions. So part of it was just by necessity, was having to go out and explore some of these conventions. It was I couldn't just go to one convention and be like, this is what horror conventions are about. As much as I just wanted to do a documentary on Rock and Shock, for example, that wasn't going to be the case. So the Midwest has a lot, and they have a lot of that have been around for a while too. Monster Mania in particular has been around for a really long time. Horror Hound is now considered one of the biggest in the country, and that sort of had that turnover while I was filming Phantasm, because that was the first year that they brought a bunch of Walking Dead guests in, and that turned it from like a horror convention, tight knit group, to like a large scale like pop culture horror convention, And then it made me want, and then I went down to Florida for Spooky Empire because that was new and up and coming, but they had a really good guest list, and I wanted to just make sure I got a wide array of convention settings, everywhere, everything from like a hotel ballroom to a convention center to, just like a whatever. So I wanted to make sure I got a good amount of differentiation between the conventions. So part of it was necessity, and part of it was because I think I would tell the right story.
Now let's move on to your latest film, Survival of the Film Freaks. Tell everyone what the film is about.
So Survival of the Film Freaks is part love letter to part exploration of cult cinema, particularly how technology has changed how we receive and perceive these underground buzzworthy movies. So what started as a phenomenon in the 60s and 70s with kind of word of mouth grindhouse theaters has transformed through VHS, through cable TV, through, the internet and downloading and torrenting, to now streaming and film festivals and physical media making a comeback. The idea of cult cinema is not such a tight packaged thing anymore. It's kind of broad and expansive. So, which almost goes against what the definition of cult is. However, the thing that does remain in the definition of cult is that there's a community involved that still has to, uphold a cult film or cult status. There has to be a driving force. So the documentary, it goes through a little bit of the history of, and we bounce around. We relive a lot of, our favorite memories of, VHS box art, or, watching Monster Vision and coming across a movie on, TNT or whatever, or staying up late to watch your HBO on that like 3-day free weekend, all the way up to the present day where, we learn about movies at the click of a mouse, things that, you wouldn't even think imaginable, are either resurfacing or they're coming out new. So that's what the documentary is about. We talked to a lot of, cult favorites like Ted Raimi and Joe Bob Briggs and, Adam Green, to up and comers like Jackson Stewart, who did Beyond the Gates, Karantu Mitsutaki, who did Gunwoman and Karate Kill, We talked to a few journalists and podcasters, Chris Gore from Film Threat, Rob Galuzzo from Shockwave's podcast, and just like some local friends too. Regional filmmaker Andrea Willanen is in it, and we talked to the guys over at Trick or Treat Radio too, because we wanted to make sure that it was both educational and fun. That was kind of key for us, is to make sure that we did something educational, but that wasn't, Ken Burns talking about cult cinema. We still wanted to make it fun,
What was it like trying to get funding for this film? As me personally, I think it would be more difficult to get funding for a documentary than a featured film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not, it's not an easy process, and normally wouldn't be an easy process. It was easy for us because most of it was out of pocket, and we did have two producers that helped us out too, both financially and connection wise. We had two people who were really invested in the project and what it could be, and also they knew that we could do it on the cheap. So basically, most of our money went to travel. I was living in Los Angeles. Bill was living in Boston, so during production we had to take 4 trips to each, back and forth, and a lot of it was out of our pocket. We did have two producers who helped us out a lot with that, but they were able to help because we kept everything really on the cheap as much as we could, So I wanted to just give a shout out to Mike White and Donnie Dale Evans for helping us out there, and because I think if we were to go to a production company, or if we were to go to a studio and be like, hey, we want to do a documentary on this niche topic, we probably wouldn't have gotten funding from them. So, but Bill had this sort of go get 'em attitude that was really rejuvenating and refreshing for me, because I was, trying to figure it out. I was only a couple years out into LA and, trying to figure out what the next project was. And he came in full force, and I was like, all right, man, let's do it. So it really, really got us going. And we were able to do it sort of on our own budget and our own time. On our own dime.
Who is the most interesting and favorite person that you interviewed in the documentary?
Oh, geez. And I swear my answer changes all the time, because I'm still currently I'm going through some of the interviews to pull up some special features for an eventual physical release. So it always bounces around. But I do love Steven Scarlatta, who was a producer on Jodorowsky's Dune and the writer of Beyond the Gates. He is just a wealth of knowledge, and he's from Long Island, I believe. So he's got this accent, and he is just he is so funny. Some of the best lines in the doc are from Scarlatta. Ted Raimi was our first interview, which was really nerve-wracking, because it's it's our first interview of the production going in, and it's a really big name as far as cult goes. But he was a blast. We talked to him for an hour and a half, and he was awesome. And on a personal note, I love Jeff Nelson and Rob Galuzzo are friends of mine, and it was really cool to talk to them about their backgrounds in cult. Jeff Nelson from Scream Factory has a totally different vision and view of what is going on, especially technologically. And as he is a physical media guy trying to push physical media in an era where it's supposedly dying, but he has a very successful business model that's still, is pushing out these cult films. And so those are some of my favorite guys for folks to talk to. And then again, some of our regional folks, unfortunately I didn't get to do the interview with Dynamo Mars or Johnny Wolfenstein from Trick or Treat Radio, but I know that they would have been a blast. But I did our interview with Andrea Willanen, which is a lot of fun, and Chris Brickelmeyer from Outside the Cinema. I couldn't give you one. I had to give you a bunch of names.
No problem.
No, it was a lot of fun talking to everybody, and it was a good time.
What was it like getting these people to be in your documentary?
Most everybody was really cordial and open, and wanting to talk about it. Some of our budget did go to to some of our interviewees rather, but at the same time, their willingness and openness and conversation was well worth it. You know, it was really nice, but everybody was pretty gung ho about it. You know, and I think the thing was like we wanted to always have more and more and more people, but we already had so much, and when our topic is technology, which moves so fast now, we really wanted to like hustle and get the doc out as fast as possible so it was still relevant. You know, we didn't want anything to fall into irrelevancy that we referenced in the documentary. So so getting everybody was great. I think we always like would want to talk to more and more and more people, but we had a handful of people that like we really enjoyed talking to, and we felt that we had a good flick coming out of our conversations with everybody.
What were some of the challenges that you and Bill faced while doing this film, whether it's a filming standpoint or a post-production standpoint?
Yeah, so you know, Bill is a first-time filmmaker. This was totally not his wheelhouse, so I think that there was some hurdles and he would have told you this too, and we've talked about it before. Those would be his hurdles. Mine would be sort of like structuring the doc, or trying to figure out what exactly his vision was for the piece. And, you know, I mean, post-production was not my strong suit, but we also, here's the thing. I would claim it's not my strong suit, but I really feel like the film is edited well. I edited the film and we pieced together a really great doc. So I think like, just general, like, uncertainness, you know, going in and doing everything out of pocket. We didn't want to get to a place where we couldn't afford to make the movie anymore, you know, where we didn't want to just have the movie die. So I think that was the biggest challenge. And that's a very like ambiguous and broad sort of thing. You know, there's a lot of feelings that go into what that is like. So I can't quite point to thing. I think Bill and I both complemented each other really well. Bill did all the interviews and I did all like the camera and the setups, and we complemented each other really excellent in that mode. So then it was just making sure that we can, you know, get a finished product before we go broke, you know. Not that we couldn't, you know, maybe be like, you know, do an Indiegogo or a Kickstarter for some finishing funds, but that wasn't what we wanted to do. We wanted to get the thing done, get it out there to people, and do it as quick as possible, but as effectively as possible too.
Speaking of Kickstarter or Indiegogo, would you ever consider using that for crowdfunding if you were to do a feature film on your own?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, I had used Kickstarter to fund Phantasm, and that was really successful. I mean, I wasn't asking for a lot then, and doing a documentary, I mean, you can do a narrative feature on the cheap too, but you can do a documentary on the cheaper even, you know. So I think that's always a possibility. I think, you know, the key to success with the crowdfunding stuff is that you really have to show all your cards. You have to show every bit of effort that you've put in before you ask for money. Like I think that I wouldn't just go and be like, hey, I want to fund this and just give the idea. Like I would go in with a proof of concept, and I would go in with, you know, images that I've created and content and small little tidbits that I could afford to do myself before asking for anything substantial. But that's definitely an option. You know, it's not for anything. It's hard for me to ask people for things. So it's like, I have to get over that hurdle. But I've gotten a lot better about it, you know, but the crowdfunding thing is a little iffy. It's like, I want to have all my ducks in a row before I would go into something like that. But I've seen a lot of successful films come off of crowdfunding, you know, people really getting out there and being able to accomplish their goals with the help of other people who are interested in seeing what those goals, you know, are. So that's really cool, and I think it's a great thing to dive into if you can.
How long did it take to shoot this film from beginning to end?
It took about 2 years. We started September 20th, 2016. So actually less than that, so maybe a year and a half to shoot, about 6 months to edit, and now we're going around to festivals with it now. So I would do a full round of about 2 years, because there was some pre-production stuff before we rolled our first interview too. So I would say I would be about 2 years.
What has the reception for this film been at the various festivals where you've screened the film so far?
It's been really awesome. So we premiered our documentary at Horror Hound in Indianapolis, and not for anything, but it was a Sunday morning slot at a horror convention, and it was like right at opening, right when the doors opened. And I mean, the amount of people that were in there for the screening was really awesome. And the response was great too. People really like the film. It's not only just a trip. I mean, people love sort of the trip down memory lane, but they also love sort of us going into the hard topics like torrenting and like the death of physical media or the rebirth of physical media. It was sort of it was nice to hear what stuck with people. And then, we won Best Movie and Best Documentary at the Undue Divergent Film Awards, which was a huge surprise and a really cool honor to have. So it's nice to see, and then we have a couple more festivals coming up. So it's really awesome to see people digging the documentary, seeing it go out to different regions and different festivals. And, I'm excited to see what the rest of it is. This is still sort of early on in our festival run. We still, we have 3 or 4 coming up, potential screenings coming up. So, and we've only done technically 2. One technically. The second one, which is the Undue Divergent Film Awards, that wasn't even an advertised screening because we didn't know that we were going to win the award. So, we've only really had the one festival screening and the award ceremony, and both were a great success for us and got us really excited about the doc, and that we get to have more and more people see it.
Would you ever consider getting out of the documentary genre to make a horror film?
Absolutely. I think my next film that I would like to do is narrative. It's not I wouldn't necessarily call it horror, though there are kind of horrific things that happen within the film, and that's the one that I've written. And then Bill and I have an idea for a horror anthology that we'd like to dive into. So I think ultimately, the next step is to do something narrative. That's always been the goal after the doc, because this Survival of the Film Freaks was really the culmination of Bill's many years of cult film reviewing. So I think that this was sort of like his I don't know, coup de grace of cult cinema stuff, and now he's ready to kind of move into the world of doing something different. He's watched movies for so long, as have I, that we would like to make our own narrative finally.
I know this film is still on the festival circuit, but when can we expect a DVD or Blu-ray release of the film?
So I think that hopefully the film will be available by spring of next year. Whether that means a physical release or, streaming or available for purchase online, one or all of them or all of the above, we're aiming for the spring of next year. We want to round it out. We'll take the winter to really, get everything kind of situated, and then hopefully have it ready for spring.
Are there any upcoming festival screenings for the film?
Yeah, so we do have one happening in Southbridge, Massachusetts, via the Shauna Shea Memorial Film Festival, and that's Saturday, October 6th, 5 o'clock at the Starlight Gallery. It hasn't been announced yet, but it might be by the time that this airs. We do have a screening in Salem, Massachusetts. That's gonna. Oh, hold on. Let me go in order here. we have Sin City Horror Fest in Las Vegas where we'll be screening the weekend of October 19th through the 21st. I'm not sure on the exact time and date yet, but that schedule should be announced soon. And then October 27th is going to be in Salem, Massachusetts for the first ever Witch City Horror Film Festival. And that's a Saturday, October 27th. So we have a busy October ahead of us. We have one in November that has yet to be announced. But what you can do is you can find us on Facebook at Survival of the Film Freaks, just facebook.com/Survival of the Film Freaks. Also on Twitter and Instagram at Film Freaks Movie. That's the best way to kind of keep up to date with where the flick's going to be playing. So, as I said, we have a couple more we're waiting to hear from, kind of coming to the end of our festival run. And that means we kind of really look into an official release here shortly. So,
any upcoming projects that you would like to promote besides this?
This is the biggest thing right now. Anything else that we're working on isn't quite ready to see the light of day, but we're working on making it happen. I will, like I said, I have like a little sort of thriller narrative that I would like to do, a narrative feature, as well as this potential anthology. So we'll get the ball rolling here and there, see what we can get done. But that's what we've got going on right now.
Okay, I would like to thank you for your time and thank you for coming on the show.
Anthony, thanks so much for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Have a good day.
You as well.
I want to thank my guest Kyle Kuchta for joining me on this episode. His film Survival of the Film Freaks is currently playing on the film festival circuit. Before I get to my film recommendation, I just want to let you know that this month in October, I'm going to try to at least get 3 shows on. Maybe a 4th show as well. Depends. Since we're in the Halloween month, I figured why not try to at least get 3 or 4 shows out of the way instead of the usual bi-weekly format. I'll probably do this just for the October month only, since it's the month of horror. Why not have some new episodes instead of waiting like 2 weeks between each episode? I will definitely have a Rock and Shock episode, as I'll be getting interviews hopefully at that convention next weekend. Also, I hope to have a special episode that I'm currently working on, but if all the plans work out and everything, I will definitely be announcing that shortly on the show's Facebook page, which you can visit over at Anthony T's Horror Show on Facebook. It's www.facebook.com/Anthony T's Horror Show. Please give it a like if you want to get the latest news and everything. Now here's my film recommendation for episode 4. There were a lot of ways that I could have gone with this week's film recommendation. I could have gone with Red Eye, which is having its DVD release at the end of the month. I could have gone with Nina Forever, which is finally coming to Blu-ray after 2 years, and pretty much giving up on any hope of any release for that film until Dread Central Presents saved it and released it as part of a double feature with Imitation Girl. But I'm going to stick with CT Horrorfest. And one of the guests that I got to meet at CT Horrorfest was Michael Williams from the Blair Witch Project. He was a very nice guy. He was very personable. I had a very good time meeting him. And I really hope he comes back to the New England area next year for the 20th anniversary of the Blair Witch Project. And who knows, maybe bring another cast member, or all 3 cast members, quite frankly, or another cast member and a director. I think it would be kind of cool if there was a Blair Witch 20th reunion. With that said, my film recommendation this week is The Blair Witch Project. Yes, this is one of those films I'm going to tell you right now. You're either going to love it a lot or you're going to hate it a lot. This was the film that put the found footage genre on the map. I remember seeing this film back when it first played in theaters. It was in a local art house called the Avon Cinema. And I remember the marketing campaign saying, oh, with these three main characters missing. It was like, that kind of hooked me in. Plus the way the trailers are done, which also generated my interest. When I watched the film, it was very creepy. This is one of those films where you have to have seen it on the big screen, because this film is, the look of the film is just downright creepy. I like how this wasn't a traditionally shot film, as it looked like it was shot on 16mm. The film has very good performances from all of its leads. Plus, the film is just so scary. It really creeped me out. Quite frankly, The Blair Witch Project is still one of the best found footage films of all time. You can see the film on Amazon Prime, Shudder, and it's also available on DVD and Blu-ray. So I really encourage you to check it out if you really love the Paranormal Activity films or Grave Encounters. The Blair Witch Project is a very downright intense, creepy film that you will enjoy, and I do truly consider this film to be one of the best horror films to come out of the 1990s. I want to make a correction to the beginning of my film recommendation that I mentioned Red Eye is coming out this month. Well, it's currently out on DVD. I suggest you highly get the film. I enjoyed it a lot. It's currently one of my favorite independent horror films of the year, and which leads to a nice segue into what's happening inside the horror chamber. Over at thehorrorchamber.blogspot.com, I recently did a review, Bong of the Living Dead. You can read why I enjoyed that film so much. And over on the Horror Chamber's YouTube channel, I recently did another edition of the Horror Chamber's DVD and Blu-ray collection. It's more of a companion piece to CT Horrorfest, as I talk about the films that I picked up over at CT Horrorfest, and that will be on the YouTube channel. You can just type in Anthony T's Horror Chamber in the search box and it'll take you there. Well, that's all I got this episode. As I said, I'll be over at Rockin' Shock next weekend, which I can't wait, as I have some promo cards that I will have on me and at the table there at Rockin' Shock. If you want a preview of what the cards look like, you can visit the show's official Facebook page, as I recently posted it up there just to give everyone a look at it, because ready to promote the show and try to get more eyes and ears to my podcast. So be on the lookout for some of the promo cards there at Rockin' Shock. Well, I want to thank you again for listening to this episode of Anthony T's Horror Show. Thank you for listening and support indie horror.